Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. On today's video I'm going to look at the world of the vocoder, and in particular one app that I use called Matrix Vocoder. What I thought to do to begin with is give you a little bit of a breakdown of what a vocoder is. Now, the vocoder itself was invented in the 1930s by Homer Dudley whilst he was working at Bell Laboratories. Essentially, the vocoder works by taking an input signal, i.e. a voice, but it could be anything. It could be a synth, it could be a guitar, it could be general noise. That signal is then split up into a number of bands, and those bands are each analysed for the frequencies which are inside them. This information is then passed to the vocoder, which then tries to recreate those frequencies via the oscillators which are within the vocoder. This information is then stuck back together again and then output to your speakers or whatever else. When people think about vocoders, music such as Kraftwerk, in order to demonstrate a little bit of vocoding, I'll put a little clip of a No Emis track which I put out last week, which shows the vocoder in action. So, without further ado, we've seen basically how our vocoder works. Let's see how all that is put together in Matrix Vocoder. So, a bit of housekeeping about Matrix Vocoder. It's made by Virsyn. I'll put a link in the description to the video. As of Christmas 2021, it is on sale. It's normally $9.99. It's currently $3.99. So, not an expensive app. And if you think you might be able to use a vocoder in some of your projects, this might be the one to go for. Let's have a look at the app itself. So when you open Matrix Vocoder, you're on the first page, which is the matrix itself. Now, Matrix Vocoder uses 32 bands, so that incoming audio is being split into 32 sets of frequencies, and these are represented on the matrix as these 32 dots. Now, Virsyn's help file suggests that for the most accurate reproduction of the voice, to keep the positions of these dots in this diagonal. If you start moving them away from that, the signal gets much more mushed around, which may be what you want, but with that in mind, we can see these 32 dots. If we move over to the level, this is 32 bands of volume. So you've got control over all of these different snippets of the vocoded sounds that you're working with. And these are starting from lowest frequency up to highest frequency. We can also play around with the panning of these. It's currently, there's nothing on the screen, which means it's dead down the center. But again, you can draw on the page, and you can put each of those frequencies at a different point in the stereo spectrum, which again allows you to really manipulate the sound that you're creating. We've looked at the three of the 4 pages, but the important one where everything goes on is the vocoder page. So there's a lot going on this page, and I will try and quickly whiz through what's going on. Importantly, you've got the synthesizer on-off button. So that needs to be switched on if you want it to make any vocoding sounds. I'll just point out on here, I've got AUM with a clean audio channel, and then I've got AUM with the same audio channel that's going to whiz through the vocoder. The vocoder has a choice of working either to a specific key or to the pitch of your voice. If the MIDI is switched on, this means that you can press a key or multiple keys on your MIDI controller, and the vocoder will work with that. So let's just hear what that sounds like on this preset.
Hello, this is a mono preset sound. The pitch is based on the MIDI keyboard notes that I am pressing. It goes quite low as well.
Okay, so if that wasn't awkward yet, it probably soon will be. In that mode there, it was just a monophonic signal. So I can press one MIDI note and that will be the carrier for the vocoder. What we can do is, in addition, is to switch monophonic off, which therefore means polyphonic. And that means that we could do chords, and that might sound something like this.
I'm now talking in a chord, which is really weird. But what did you expect from a vocoder?
I do worry that this video might suggest the onset of a midlife crisis or another breakdown. But, you know, let's just go with it. Let's roll with it. Within that incoming pitch, we can actually alter the output pitch of the vocoder with the pitch course. So at 12 o'clock in the middle, that would be based on the initial pitch, but we can drop it down 2 octaves, or we could raise it 2 octaves, depending on what you're trying to get. You may have noticed already, it's no secret, I've got quite a deep voice. I tend not to pull the pitch course down too low, otherwise it really starts to get quite gravelly. But that might be what you want. And again, the output pitch in this case is set by the MIDI. We have an alternative, which is this track pitch. And what this tries to do is the vocoder listens to the pitch that the incoming signal is on and then tries to replicate that within the vocoded one. What I can do now is swap MIDI over to track pitch, and let's have a hear.
This is just the vocoder talking based on my voice. I'll reduce the noise gate to see if that stops it glitching quite so much, but this seems to be one of the problems on this. But if I change my track pitch, i.e. my voice pitch, the vocoder follows it, so you get the idea.
Yeah, that seems to be one issue I'm finding on the track pitch option, that the gating seems to be a little bit too strict, and I haven't quite worked my way around that one. Now, I've not got too obsessed by this, because I've found one limitation with the track pitch is that it's got a lower limit on the pitch it will track. In this case seems to be the F sharp 2 below middle C. Now that's sort of the middle of my vocal range, so the pitch tracking actually stops so at that level. So if I go any lower, the pitch ends up incorrect. It's not a major problem, because I can turn track pitch off and do everything with the MIDI option, and that will go down as low as the keyboard that you're working with. So there's ways around it, but it's just something to be mindful of. There's plenty of adjustments that we can make on this screen, and this is essentially the working screen for changing between all the presets. There's only about half a dozen or 8 of them, which we can whiz through. Let's do that now. Some of them will sound a little bit strange, but that's what we're here for. Listening to me sounding more strange than normal.
The women's choir is based on a track pitch, which sounds very disturbing to me. But hey, let's go with it.
The robot version is a little less weird, but quite high for what I'm working with. So in that situation, I'd probably drop the pitch down a bit just to make it sound a little bit less tinny. Track your voice really is doing what it says on the tin. So if I speak high, it goes up, and if I speak low, it goes down quite low, but it is limited by the inbuilt pitching of the synthesizer itself.
Men's choir is again another strange one. It sounds more like the voice overdubs they use in crime documentaries where they don't want the victim to be identified.
Copy Your Voice is again another pitch track based one, and yeah, it just sounds like a computerized version of a human voice.
Roboter Deep is not deep.
Now it's deep. And Damp Track is again another sound which is very similar in the operation of a human voice, but obviously turned into an electronic noise instead.
Now the thing is, each of those presets are all really working from this main screen, and yes, you can change all the levels and the panning just to get a different effect, but essentially this is your main control panel. We've talked about the pitch, we've been messing around with that. The formant option again is a tweaking of frequencies, so you can more model a male voice versus a female voice. The dry wet mix is exactly what you'd expect. Turn it off and you just get the input signal, all the way up when you're just getting the vocoded signal, and the output gain is just an additional volume control. You can fine-tune the pitch with the pitch fine, so again it's just like any other synth in that sense. Now these two middle dials, the density and the detune, are essentially again things that you wouldn't find in most synthesizers. Your density is the number of oscillators. It's currently set at 1. You can whiz it up all the way to 16 oscillators. The more oscillators that are involved, the more full the sound that you can create. And you can detune them in the same way that you can detune oscillators in a synthesizer. So if they're all slightly detuned, it makes a much sort of fatter sound. Some vocal sounds are difficult for the vocoder to actually process and recreate. Most of the things like plosives. So the way that vocoders get around this is to use what's called unvoiced noise. So it's basically you've got your normal signal coming in, but you can also have a noise signal, and by turning the detection on and then turning up your noise to the appropriate level, you can then tweak how the plosives sound. It's worth understanding that vocoders, when they were initially sort of created, were not being made with the idea of, oh, Kraftwerk will use this in 40 years' time. It was all to do with the processing of voice over telephone wires. That's what Bell Laboratories were researching and really trying to find the best way to transmit voice information over long distance. The only other bits and pieces we've got on here, we've got the noise gate, which is the same as in any other amping system where below a certain level, noise won't be picked up, it won't activate the vocoder. You've got a portamento, so when you're in monophonic mode, the affects how the synthesizer glides between two different notes. And then you've also got the option to meddle around with the pitch bend. Didn't mention before, but this is an AUV3. It can work in standalone as well. I've got it opened up in AUM, but that's more just so I can demonstrate vocoding and then drop out to my normal voice, because it would probably get a little bit strange if I tried to narrate the whole thing sounding like a broken robot toy. I think the only difference I've noticed between the standalone and the AUV3 layout is there's a couple of extra boxes at the top of the standalone. It allows you to do some recording functions, and there's an online help there as well. It's worth noting within AUM that all the parameters that you could ever possibly want to consider are available for mapping. So you can see here we've got 32 channels on the matrix, and then you've got their levels, and then you've got their panning. So in terms of being able to control it with your favorite MIDI controller and just doing weird and wacky things, you could obviously attach LFOs to this and have stuff wibbling and wobbling all over the place. It's very, very flexible. From my point of view, I just want to add a robot voice to my songs occasionally. Let's finish off with a little bit more vocoding.
This is a chord
playing with the sound using the MIDI controller to change the pitch. The matrix is all very clean. Let's mess it up.
Yes, yes, Could you even make any sense of what I just said? I think so.
So that was a little bit of fun playing around with a vocoder. As I said, it's something which can be used in tracks. It can be used just to create a theme in a sound or an effect. But it's something that's very, very customizable and something you can really play around with just to tailor it to your own tastes. It's relatively straightforward to get working. However, I find I can't always guarantee how stuff's going to work out, especially if I'm working with the track pitch. Obviously, the limitation to the lower end of the vocal range is a problem for me anyway. But I also found that the gating can be a bit weird as well. That's almost certainly entirely user error that I haven't quite worked out yet. But I find that by using the MIDI controller, that really helps, and that keeps things tidy. I hope that was useful. I hope it was interesting, and you learned something about an app which you may not have thought about before. I think this will be the last video that I'll be doing on the channel for 2021. So thanks for sticking with me and watching my videos. If you've enjoyed this video, hit that like button. Leave me a comment if you've got any comments or questions, and I'll endeavour to try and answer them. If you're not already subscribed, hit the subscribe button, and when we get into 2022, there'll be more content, more shenanigans, and we'll go from there. So hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a great new year, and I will see you in the next video. Bye for now.